Part 56. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 552. Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xian held Xiao Junting and Wang Haining in their arms. The four of them watched Xiao Jiao sign the agreement, then took the ink pad, dipped it with their thumb, and pressed it on the contract. Okay, it's done, Xiao Jiao breathed a sigh of relief, closed the agreement, and handed it to Li Jie with a smile. Li Jie glanced at her and reached out to take the agreement. Jiao Bao, do you know what signing this agreement means? Xiao Jiao looked at him and nodded. I know, the prenuptial property agreement. Since I signed this agreement, your property has nothing to do with me, but I never thought about your property in the first place. As she spoke, she turned to look at Zhou Ziyu. Zhou Ziyu didn't notice her gaze, and seemed to be in a daze. Li Jie looked at it casually, put the agreement aside, and said with a smile, not only does the property have nothing to do with you, but you have to bear the debt alone. Debt? Xiao Jiao was stunned for a moment. You've been making money, haven't you? Where did the debt come from? Li Jie gave her a strange look, as if she asked a stupid question. Most companies are run with debt and rely on loans to sustain themselves. Don't look at the media's claims that I am worth more than 20 billion. In fact, that is just a company valuation, which is all false. On the contrary, I owe the bank 3 to 4 billion. Having said this, he paused and said with a smile, Jiao Bao, you are now a billionaire, a responsible one. 3 to 4 billion, Xiao Jiao couldn't help but scream. You owe the bank so much money. No, you owe the bank 3 to 4 billion, Li Jie reminded her with a smile. Xiao Jiao suddenly became anxious. Li Jie, how could you do this? Even if you have to bear the debt, at least two people have to bear it. How could you let me be alone? Li Jie looked at her and suddenly chuckled. Xiao Jiao paused for a moment, then said as if coming to his senses, are you kidding me? Li Jie didn't answer, but he couldn't hide the smile on his face. Okay. You're really kidding me, Xiao Jiao angrily threw herself at him and hit him randomly. She was really frightened just now. The sky-high debt of 3 to 4 billion wouldn't be worth that much even if she was sold. The poorer ordinary people are, the more afraid they are of debt, while the richer they are, the less afraid they are of debt. If you owe the bank hundreds of thousands, you are the grandson to the bank. If you owe the bank several billions, you are the grandson to the bank. What if you owe tens of billions? Then you are the ancestor of the bank. Ordinary people rely on working to pay off debts, while rich people rely on debt to make money. After Xiao Jiao finished beating her, Li Jie rubbed her head in a funny way. Why are you so stupid? Don't you think you are worth 3 to 4 billion? Even if I sell you, you will only be worth 300,000 at most. With Xiao Jiao's good looks, someone would definitely rob her of her 300,000 to 400,000 yuan as a gift. 3 to 400,000. Xiao Jiao said dissatisfiedly, do you think money is really worth it? Then I'll give you another tens of thousands. You hate it? Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi looked at the scene of Li Jie and Xiao Jiao having a fight with complicated expressions. Zhou Ziyu bit her lip tightly, feeling extremely lost and frustrated. The moment Xiao Jiao signed without hesitation, she knew that she had really lost, completely. She can also give up marital property, but she will be somewhat hesitant and hesitate to read the agreement first. She had never believed before that someone could face the temptation of tens of billions of assets without wavering, until Xiao Jiao taught her a lesson just now. At this moment, Zhou Ziyu truly understood why Li Jie chose Xiao Jiao. She understands Li Jie, but Xiao Jiao trusts Li Jie unconditionally. Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xian secretly admired him. They thought they could not be like Xiao Jiao, so they gave up tens of billions of assets without hesitation. Only Wang Haining didn't think it was a big deal. If it were her, she would have signed without hesitation. After teasing Xiao Jiao, Li Jie suppressed his smile, reached out and picked up the remaining dozen documents and the real estate certificate. You must have signed all these documents, and kept the real estate certificate. Xiao Jiao took it and looked at it. The document was the name-adding agreement for several properties such as Sandalwood Villa and Platinum Bay Residence, as well as the transfer agreement for the luxury cars that Li Jie gave her. The real estate certificates are for her retest apartment on the Bund and the 3-story rural self-built building in Hongcheng. There is also a current passbook, which contains 20,000 to 30,000 yuan, which is the rent money received in the past 2 years. Li Jie has always been responsible for keeping Xiao Jiao's personal household registration and real estate certificates in her name, and she is too lazy to take care of these things. Now that the two are about to get married, Li Jie plans to officially transfer this small portion of his personal property to Xiao Jiao and let her learn to manage it. Looking at the real estate certificate of the self-built building, Xiao Jiao couldn't help but smile. After looking at it for a while, she put down the real estate certificate, picked up the pen and started to sign the agreements one by one. While Xiao Jiao was busy signing, Li Jie looked at Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi and said, Xiao Yu, and Xinyi, when it's your turn, you will also sign the agreement. Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi looked at each other and nodded. Never test human nature. Human nature is vulnerable to huge interests. Li Jie asked Xiao Jiao and the others to sign an agreement to give up their marital property, which was also for their own good and to prevent them from being tempted by huge benefits. If you really like someone, you must help them avoid all external temptations. Those men who trust their girlfriends 100%, especially those whose girlfriends are relatively beautiful, will basically not end well. To trust someone 100% is to allow the other person to make mistakes. It took Xiao Jiao a long time to sign more than a dozen agreements, and she felt her hands were a little sore. Okay, finally everything is signed. She pushed all the signed agreements to Li Jie. Li Jie took these agreements without reading them, and casually put them together with the previous marital property agreement, and then said to Xiao Jiao and the others, I asked you to sign the property agreement, not because I am reluctant to give up money, I make money just to spend it on you. Jiao Bao, what do you mean? Seeing Xiao Jiao looking at him with strange eyes, Li Jie stopped and asked. You make money not just to give us flowers, but also to give flowers to those little vixens outside you, Xiao Jiao muttered in a low voice. Li Jie couldn't help coughing after hearing this. What kind of truth is the Xiao Jiao always talking about? He continued, the purpose of signing the marital property agreement is to avoid affecting the development of the company because of our marital problems. This reason is not an excuse for Li Jie. If his personal marriage and the company are implicated, it will easily lead to big troubles. The founder of Tudo.com was sued by his ex-wife due to a marital property dispute just before the company went public, which led to the failure of Tudo.com to go public. Therefore, rich people really cannot get married randomly. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanjie. Chapter 553. Husband, you don't need to explain, we can all understand, Zhou Ziyu said softly. Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi also expressed their understanding. Li Jie nodded, I know you are not with me for money, but... Ha, Xiao Jiao suddenly couldn't help but chuckle. Li Jie stopped and turned to look at her, Jiao Bao, why are you laughing? You're not laughing at anything, Xiao Jiao smiled again. She paused, then couldn't help but say, husband, don't you say this against your will. Against your will? Li Jie looked surprised. Jiao Bao, are you with me just for money? Seeing Li Jie slandering her like this, Xiao Jiao suddenly became anxious. Of course I'm not with you for money, but that may not be true for some people. As she said that, she looked at Zhou Ziyu. Zhou Ziyu didn't seem to hear Xiao Jiao's sarcasm at all, and smiled at her. Xiao Jiao looked away and snorted, the vixen is very scheming. Lu Kaiu and Shen Xian both had a little smile on their faces. They were all used to seeing Xiao Jiao and Zhou Ziyu arguing. Okay, just say a few words less, and you'll be the one to do more. Li Jie smiled and rubbed Xiao Jiao's head, messing up her hair. Humph, just protect her. Xiao Jiao knocked off his mischievous hand with dissatisfaction. Li Jie suppressed his smile and glanced at Xiao Jiao and Zhou Ziyu's faces one by one. As I said just now, I make money for you to spend. My property is your property and will be inherited by our children in the future. I will treat the children fairly, and everyone will have one share of everything. You don't have to worry about whom I will favor. After hearing what he said, Xiao Jiao, Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiu, Shen Xinyi and Wang Zhaining looked at each other with different expressions. Xiao Jiao thought for a while and couldn't help but say, doesn't this mean that whoever has more children will take advantage? Wang Zhaining has already given birth to one child, and Zhou Ziyu is also pregnant with another, so she will be at a disadvantage. Also, what about those little vixens outside you? Do they also get a share of the children they give birth to? Lu Kaiu, Shen Xinyi, and the others all looked at Li Jie. Noticing the eagerness in their eyes, Li Jie couldn't help but feel nervous, realizing that there was a big problem with the distribution method he had come up with. If the property is divided according to the number of children, whoever has more children will get more property. Otherwise, he will become a tool for them to fight for property. It is true that life lies in movement, but if you exercise just for life, you will lose the fun of exercise. In this case, Xiao Yu, and Xinyi, each of you will get one share, and Jiaobao will get 1.5. After saying that, Li Jie paused, looked at Zhou Ziyu and the others and said, Xiao Jiao was the first to be with me. Do you have any objection to her taking an extra half portion? Although he was asking, his tone was unquestionable. Lu Kaiu and Shen Xian looked at each other and expressed no objection. Zhou Ziyu glanced at Xiao Jiao and said with a smile, I don't have any objection either. She knew that she couldn't compete with Xiao Jiao. She once had a chance but failed to seize it. Li Jie nodded to them and said to Wang Zhaining, Xiaoning, take half. Wang Zhaining snorted slightly without any dissatisfaction. She has no plans to have any more children, and half of it is enough for Xiao Junting. Zhou Ziyu's eyes fell on Wang Zhaining's face. She always considered herself smart, but she was not as good as a love brain. If she had followed Li Jie wholeheartedly and not had so many small thoughts, even if she still couldn't compete with Xiao Jiao, at least in Li Jie's heart she could be on par with him. She suddenly remembered a saying, the agency was too clever, but it cost Ching Ching her life. How great it would be if I could do it all over again. She could just be a little dumber. Xiao Jiao returned to the room, sat down by the bed, and took a long breath. More than 20 billion. When she thought of giving up so much money, she felt, so awesome. After seeing the marital property agreement, Xiao Jiao realized something. At that time, she had only one thought in her mind, she could not show her cowardice in front of Zhou Hu. Therefore, she picked up the pen and signed the agreement without waiting for Li Jie to speak. Xiao Jiao is the kind of girl who is easily satisfied. She has been with Li Jie for 3 or 4 years, and she has never asked him for anything. That time she asked for a sports car, it was out of anger that she turned around and forgot about it. Yes, without Xiao Jiao having to ask, Li Jie would take the initiative to buy her whatever she wanted or liked. But human desires are endless, and many people will not be satisfied no matter how much they get. Aren't those celebrities and internet celebrities who earn over 100 million, or even hundreds of millions or billions a year still greedy and evading taxes? It is extremely rare for an ordinary girl to suddenly have a rich boyfriend, but she can still maintain her pure original intention without much change. Of course, the fact that Xiao Jiao doesn't care about money has a lot to do with her lack of experience and social experience. The simpler and more innocent a person is, the less he cares about money. Only those who have experienced troughs, experienced the ups and downs of human relationships, and the harshness of the world will truly realize how important money is. This is the case with Zhou Ziyu. Xiao Qiao and Zhou Ziyu are like two mirrors, one is simple, innocent, the other is smart, utilitarian, and realistic. Li Jie understood Zhou Ziyu very well, but Xiao Qiao made him feel more relaxed. Dong dong, there was a knock on the door suddenly. Xiao Qiao got up and came to the door, opened the door, and found that it was Li Jie's bodyguard Xu Mei. Miss Qiao, the wedding invitations have been prepared. Mr. Li asked me to deliver them to you, Xu Mei said, handing over the pile of invitations in his hand. Sorry to trouble you, Sister Mei, Xiao Qiao smiled and took the invitation. Why didn't Li Jie send it here himself? Could it be that you went with that Joe Fox again? Probably. After Xu Mei left, Xiao Qiao closed the door, took the invitation and sat down at the desk, tore open the sealing paper, picked up an invitation and read it carefully. The invitation is beautiful and exquisite, very beautiful. After fiddling with it for a while, Xiao Qiao put down the invitation and picked up a pen to start filling in the invitation. The wedding of the two was scheduled for the 30th of this month, and there were only a dozen days left. She had to fill out the invitations as soon as possible and send them out. Xiao Qiao's intuition was really accurate. Li Jie was indeed with Zhou Ziyu. After Li Jie returned to the room, he rested for a while, then sat down at the desk and prepared to deal with company emails. At this moment, Zhou Ziyu knocked on the door and walked in with a cup of coffee. Hubby, drink a cup of coffee to refresh yourself. With that said, she put the coffee on the table. Li Jie took a sip of coffee, put down the cup, glanced at Zhou Ziyu and said, Xiao, are you okay? The way she hesitated to speak clearly meant that something was wrong. Zhou Ziyu hesitated and said, Husband, I have something to confess to you. Don't be angry with me. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 554. Frank. Li Jie was stunned for a moment, then stretched out his hand to pull Zhou Ziyu over and let her sit on his lap. It depends on what the matter is. As long as it is not a principled mistake, I can forgive it. Zhou Ziyu glanced at him, bit her lip and said softly, Husband, I lied to you. I went to the hospital for a checkup first and then told you about the pregnancy. Li Jie listened and chuckled casually, Is this what you're talking about? I really thought you made some big mistake. Zhou Ziyu said a little surprised, Hubby, are you not angry with me at all? Am I so narrow-minded in your eyes? Do you get angry because of this little thing? Li Jie paused and then said, I didn't say that, as long as it's not a mistake of principle, it doesn't matter. Zhou Ziyu's charming face suddenly showed a smile, she leaned over and kissed him on the cheek, Hubby, you are the most generous. Li Jie stretched out his hand and tapped her forehead in a funny way, You are just too careful. Didn't you guess that I won't be really angry with you? Zhou Ziyu chuckled lightly and did not deny it. Husband, did you already know this? What do you know? Li Jie asked with a smile. You really know it? Zhou Ziyu stared at him and said. Li Jie smiled and did not deny it again. He had indeed known about Zhou Ziyu's little move, and Lu Ji and Lu Yingqi's failure to report it. In addition to the two public bodyguards Lu Ji and Lu Yingqi, Li Jie actually arranged more bodyguards to secretly protect Zhou Ziyu. In terms of physical strength, women are still not as good as men. Even though Lu Ji and Lu Yingqi have served in the army, they have good skills and can handle 2 or 3 men without any problem. But this refers to ordinary people who don't have much fighting experience. If they meet gangsters who are strong and have rich fighting experience, the two of them will suffer. With only the two of them protecting Zhou Ziyu, how could Li Jie rest assured? If something unexpected happened, it would be useless to regret. In fact, not only Zhou Ziyu, but also Xiao Jiao, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi, he also arranged for people to secretly protect them. Under double protection, every move of Xiao Jiao and the others was under his control. Neither of them spoke for a while. Zhou Ziyu leaned into Li Zhe's arms. Li Zhe hugged her and played with her white, tender, and slender legs. The touch felt so good that he couldn't stop. "Husband, I was wrong," Zhou Ziyu suddenly said softly. "What's wrong with you? I shouldn't be so thoughtful. I will never be like that again." Li Zhe took his hand back, looked at her and sighed softly. "Xiao, you are so smart, why don't you understand? None of this is important. Everyone is inevitably a little petty. This is not a fault. You are petty, so are Xiaoyu and Xinyi. Even Xiao Jiao is the same. Besides, the mistress who doesn't want to become a regular employee, ahem. I accidentally told the truth." Zhou Ziyu was obviously stunned for a moment, and stood up from his arms, with a hint of resentment in her beautiful eyes. Li Zhe smiled and said, "Okay, you are the mistress and I am the cheating scumbag. Aren't we a perfect match?" Zhou Ziyu bit her lips tightly, her beautiful eyes looking even more resentful. Li Zhe suddenly laughed, "You just can't help but think too much about everything. Look how heartless Xiao Jiao is." "I can't compare to Xiao Jiao." Zhou Ziyu avoided his gaze and whispered. Li Zhe was stunned for a moment and looked her up and down, as if he didn't recognize her. Zhou Ziyu felt a little uncomfortable when he looked at her. "Hubby, why do you look at me like this? They say that pregnancy makes you stupid for 3 years. I didn't really believe it before, but I kind of believe it now." "Husband, are you saying I'm stupid?" Li Zhe nodded seriously. "You were quite smart before, but now you are really a bit stupid. Xiao, you don't need to compare with Xiao Jiao. Xiao Jiao has simple ideas because she hasn't experienced too many human experiences and has a shallow understanding of many things. I like her simplicity and I also like your intelligence. Do you understand?" After a pause, he smiled and said, "Actually, girls are a little thoughtful and have a little tea, which is quite cute." After Zhou Ziyu heard this, he was stunned for a few seconds, and then his beautiful eyes lit up. "Hubby, I understand." "Just understand," Li Zhe hugged her again. "Husband, what did you mean by tea just now?" "It's green tea." "Green tea," Zhou Ziyu didn't understand yet. Now green tea is just a drink and has no other meaning. But Zhou Ziyu is so smart. After thinking about it for a while, he understood what Li Zhe meant. "Where did I get my tea?" she said with an angry smile. "Just some tea now." After Li Zhe finished speaking, he lowered his head and kissed her. He hasn't drank green tea for a long time. The two were intimate for a while, and Zhou Ziyu suddenly stopped him. "Husband, child, don't affect the child." Li Zhe let her go temporarily. "Then you help me." Baihe Province, Xishan City. Xiao Jiao's family has been busy lately. After Jiao's mother couldn't help but reveal the news that Xiao Jiao and Li Zhe were getting married to Xiao Jiao's aunt, the news spread quickly. First, all the relatives on Jiao's mother's side knew about it, and then the news spread among their relatives and friends. The news spread wider and wider, and within a few days the whole town was in a state of shock. The daughter of the old Xiao family actually found a very rich man, the richest young man in the country, and the two were about to get married. In other words, she is going to marry into a wealthy family and become a rich wife. Many relatives and friends who usually couldn't be reached suddenly appeared and came to Xiao Jiao's house one after another to get close to him, build relationships, snoop around, and even borrow money from him. Let Father Jiao and Mother Jiao have a good experience of what it means to be rich and have distant relatives in the mountains. Although their family is not rich, their daughter is going to marry a top rich man. Father Jiao's popularity in the town's middle school suddenly improved. His colleagues and school leaders all greeted him with smiles and enthusiasm. He worked as a teaching director for 7 or 8 years, and his work ability was finally recognized. The leader of the county education department hinted that he would be promoted to a more important position to play a role. The principal even made it clear that a vice principal is retiring and he has sufficient qualifications and abilities. Father Chiao was not stupid either. He knew that the school bureau leaders would suddenly take notice of him, not because they really recognized his abilities, but because they took advantage of his wealthy son-in-law. Seeing that Xiao Qiao's wedding is getting closer, relatives and friends are becoming more and more enthusiastic, urging Qiao's father and Qiao's mother to go to the Shanghai market as soon as possible. Xiao Qiao, this child, has been smart and beautiful since he was a child, and he will be more promising when he grows up. Xiao Qiao, her second aunt, complimented her mother Qiao with a smile on her face. Another well-dressed woman in her 30s also smiled and said, "It goes without saying that if Xiao Qiao wasn't excellent, he wouldn't have been able to find such a good partner. This is Xiao Qiao and her aunt." Mother Qiao smiled nonchalantly, "Xiao Qiao is just lucky." Seeing that her second sister and sister-in-law were subdued, she felt very happy. Xiao Qiao, her second aunt, went to college, junior college, and was married into the city, so she always has a sense of superiority towards Qiao's mother who stayed in the town. Xiao Qiao's second aunt is similar. Ding dong, the doorbell rang at this time. Qiao's father got up and was about to open the door. Xiao Qiao and her aunt quickly said, "Brother, I'd better go. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn." Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 555. Xiao Qiao, you're back. My aunt opened the door and took a look, and immediately shouted out in surprise. Hearing her cry, Father Qiao, Mother Qiao, second aunt, little cousin, and others in the living room all stood up from the sofa. Then she said again, "Xiaojin, you are back too." Little aunt, Xiao Qiao smiled and greeted her little aunt, and walked in together with Xiaojin. Next to Xiaojin was a tall, well-dressed, gentle, and beautiful girl. Behind them are 3 capable female bodyguards, carrying various high-end gifts in their hands. Father Qiao and Mother Qiao's eyes fell on Xiao Qiao and the others, and they found that after not seeing each other for a while, their daughter had become more temperamental, looking like a rich lady, and their younger son had also matured a lot. When they noticed the pretty girl next to Xiaojin, they both couldn't help but be stunned. Who is this pretty girl? Is she his son's girlfriend? This is unlikely, right? Xiao Qiao smiled coquettishly and said, "Mom and Dad, I'm back." Father Qiao and Mother Qiao came to their senses and said with a smile, "Xiao Qiao, you are back. Where is Xiao Zhe? He didn't come back with you guys. The company has been busy recently and he can't leave." After Xiao Qiao finished speaking, he said hello to his second aunt, eldest cousin, younger cousin, and others. Zhou Jing and Xu Mei also placed the gifts they were carrying on the ground. "Xiao Qiao, you are really promising. You are so proud of your parents. If you find such a good partner, your parents will enjoy the blessings. Sister, you are so beautiful." The relatives surrounded Xiao Qiao with great enthusiasm, praising her all the time. Father Qiao and Mother Qiao looked at Xiaojin and the beautiful girl next to him. "Xiaojin, who is this?" Mother Qiao said, her eyes falling on Miao Wenqian. "The more I look at this girl, the more beautiful and elegant she becomes. I wish she was really the girlfriend my son brought back." Xiaojin turned to look at the girl, and said somewhat ostentatiously, "Mom and Dad, this is my girlfriend Miao Wenqian, you can just call her Xiao Qian." Miao Wenqian also smiled politely and said, "Hello, uncle and aunt, my name is Miao Wenqian, and I am Xiaojin's girlfriend. This beautiful girl is really their son's girlfriend." Father Qiao and Mother Qiao glanced at each other subconsciously. Mother Qiao's eyes were full of surprise, but Father Qiao's eyes were full of thinking. "Xiao Qian, right? You are welcome to come and play at home. Mother Chiao greeted her warmly. She looked at Miao Wenqian and fell in love with her more and more. She really didn't expect her son to find a very beautiful girlfriend. Father Chiao nodded politely to Miao Wenqian. After praising Xiao Chiao for a while, the second aunt, second uncle, and younger aunt also turned their attention here. Xiao Jin, is this your girlfriend? She is very beautiful. Xiaojin is also very capable of finding such a beautiful girlfriend. They all praised Xiaojin and Miao Wenqian again. Xiao Qian, you're welcome, sit down quickly. Mother Chiao warmly asked Miao Wenqian to sit down. After everyone sat down again, she warmly greeted Miao Wenqian to drink water and eat fruit, as if she was treating her as her future daughter-in-law. The second aunt, the younger aunt, and the older cousin all asked Xiao Qiao about Li Jie. Ordinary people are more curious about the affairs of upper-class people. Xiao Qiao said a few words casually. She was not Zhouziu and would hardly ask about Li Jie's work. What little she knew about Li Jie was from what he mentioned casually. Despite this, the second aunt and uncle were still shocked when they heard it. Mother Chiao glanced at Xiao Qiao, then at Xiao Jin and Miao Wenqian, feeling that she had never been in a better mood. Ever since her daughter found a wonderful boyfriend, she has felt that her life is getting better and better, and she feels more and more comfortable. Xiao Qian, you and Xiaojin are classmates. Miao Wenqian smiled and nodded, yes, auntie, Xiaojin and I are from the same school. You seem to be older than him, right? It is obvious that Miao Wenqian is much more mature than Xiaojin. Yes, I am 3 years older than Xiaojin and I have graduated this year. 3 years older? Mother Chiao and Father Chiao looked at each other again, with different expressions. Mother Chiao didn't think there was anything wrong with Xiaojin and Miao Wenqian being 3 years apart, wasn't there a saying? A female junior is holding a gold brick. It is good for the woman to be a little older and more mature. It's just that Miao Wenqian has graduated, but Xiaojin is still in school, which makes her a little worried about their future. Father Chiao took a deep look at Miao Wenqian, but thought about something deeper. He knew his son, Amo Ruofu, how much his son weighed. He knew very well that he was not worthy of a beautiful and outstanding girl like Miao Wenqian. Xiao Qiao is indeed beautiful and has a personality that attracts men. It is normal for Li Jie to like her. But Xiaojin has an average appearance, average height, and an average family background. Why did Miao Wenqian fall in love with this kid? What's more, they are 3 years apart. The only reason is that this kid has a rich brother-in-law. Sister, is that a tablet? The little cousin has been looking at the pile of gifts on the ground with expectation in his eyes. Well, it's a computer. Xiao Qiao glanced at his little cousin with a smile, and then said to Father Chiao and Mother Chiao, Mom and Dad, I came back this time and brought some gifts for everyone. After saying that, she stood up and distributed gifts to everyone. Dad, Li Jie bought this watch for you. Mom, this bracelet is yours. Second aunt, this ginseng is yours. The little cousin got the tablet as he wished. His face was full of excitement and he couldn't wait to unpack it and start playing with it. The aunt looked at the high-end ginseng in her hand, and then at the iPhone in her daughter's hand, smiling from ear to ear. Xiao Qiao, we are all family members, you really don't have to spend so much money. I can't use such good ginseng. This ginseng should be wild, right? I heard that wild ginseng is very expensive and should be worth a lot of money. The second aunt looked at the bracelet on Mother Chiao's hand and said, Sister, is your bracelet made of jade? It's so beautiful, it must be very expensive. This jade bracelet is crystal clear and as pure as glass. If this bracelet hadn't been given by Li Jie, they would have suspected that it was a glass bracelet. It seems so. I don't quite understand this either, Mother Chiao said with a smile. She likes the things given by her good son-in-law, no matter how rich or poor they are. The cousin stared at the bracelet and said in an uncertain tone, this seems to be a glass bracelet. Glass type, the second uncle said in a surprised tone. Glass jade is the best quality jade and is very expensive, but I only heard about it, the cousin explained. How expensive can it be? My aunt asked. I heard it costs hundreds or tens of millions. After hearing this, Xiao's mother, second aunt, and second uncle were all shocked and looked at Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao, what kind of glass is this bracelet really? Mother Xiao couldn't help but ask. Xiao Xiao didn't care much and said, I didn't ask him either, maybe. After a pause, she smiled and joked, Li Jia can't really give you a glass bracelet. Glass jade, as the name suggests, is jade with a purity close to that of glass. After hearing this, Mother Xiao's heart suddenly started to beat. She thought this jade bracelet was worth tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, but she didn't expect it to be worth hundreds or tens of millions. How could she dare to wear such an expensive bracelet? What if it got damaged or was robbed? This is worth hundreds or tens of millions. After hearing what Xiao Qiao said, this bracelet is really a kind of glass and worth hundreds or tens of millions. The second aunt, second uncle, and younger aunt were also shocked. They looked at Mother Qiao and the bracelet on her wrist with full eyes. Shocked and envious. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 556. Mother Qiao calmed down her mood. Xiao Qiao, so are you? Why did you ask Xiao Zhe to buy such an expensive thing? I don't need it, and I don't dare to wear it outside. Although she said this, she couldn't hide the smile on her face. Xiao Qiao glanced at Mother Qiao with a smile. He didn't discuss it with me when he bought the gift. I couldn't stop him even if I wanted to. Zhimu Emo Ruanv, how could she not see that Qiao's mother didn't mean what she said? Mom, if you don't dare to wear this bracelet outside, then wear it at home. I'm worried about keeping such an expensive thing at home. Mother Qiao caressed the jade bracelet on her wrist, unable to put it down. Father Qiao has a relatively rigid personality. In all the years they have been married, he has never given her a piece of jewelry except a wedding ring. She didn't expect that she would still have the opportunity to wear such fine jewelry when she was old. It is really good to have a good son-in-law. Sister, this is also Xiaoji's intention. Yes, sister-in-law, you are so lucky to have such a good son-in-law. The second aunt, second uncle, and others all smiled and complimented. Listening to the flattery from her relatives, Mother Qiao felt more and more comfortable. Miao Wenqin looked at the scene with a smile. Her eyes fell on Mother Qiao's wrist, and her eyes flickered slightly. My aunt looked at Mother Qiao with envy and jealousy. Among these relatives, her family had the best conditions. Her father is the vice president of a private hospital in the city, and her husband is a small leader in the city bureau with some power. She is also the head nurse in the hospital. Every time relatives gather, their family is the target of compliments. But ever since the good-for-nothing daughter of my eldest sister-in-law's family got lucky enough to find a rich boyfriend, she has completely changed. Thinking this, my aunt turned her head and looked at Xiao Qiao. Just find a good son-in-law. The second uncle thought of something and turned to look at Father Qiao. Brother-in-law, the watch Xiaoji gave you must not be cheap, right? After hearing what he said, the second aunt, uncle, and aunt all turned to look at Father Qiao, and their eyes fell on the watch on his wrist. Father Qiao raised his hand and glanced at the watch, and said indifferently, isn't it just a watch? No matter how expensive it is, it's just for telling the time. The uncle said in a guessing tone, brother-in-law, your watch should be an Omega watch, one of the top 10 famous watches, the Omega Speedmaster series. Then how much does this watch cost? The second aunt asked curiously. Millions. It is one of the top 10 famous watches. It sounds very expensive and cannot be bought. The uncle shook his head and said, it's not that expensive. The most expensive model from Omega, mass-produced, only costs over 2 million. Although my brother-in-law's watch is the most famous Speedmaster Moon watch in the Omega series, it only costs around 100,000. Only a few hundred thousand. The price was a bit beyond the expectations of the second aunt, second uncle, younger aunt, and others. A watch costs more than 100,000 yuan, which is extremely luxurious for ordinary people. But compared with the previous top-grade jade bracelets worth hundreds of thousands, a watch worth hundreds of thousands is completely inconspicuous. After hearing this, Father Chiao felt a little unbalanced in his heart. Mother Chiao's top-grade jade bracelet cost tens of millions, so how come it was just a watch worth hundreds of thousands to him? He doesn't care about money, nor is it a matter of more or less money, but that this kid Li Jie treats people differently and has a very problematic attitude. Not respecting his father-in-law enough. After distributing the gifts, Xiao Qiao said hello to her father and mother, and then went back to her room. The last thing she wanted was this kind of relative occasion. Xiao Qiao, her aunt stopped her. "Little aunt, what do you want from me?" Seeing that the other party was hesitant to speak, Xiao Qiao asked directly with a smile. "Well, something happened." The younger aunt glanced at the second aunt, second uncle, and others, pulled her aside, and said somewhat flatteringly, "Xiao Qiao, you and Xiao Zhe should know a lot of high-ranking people together, right?" Before Xiao Qiao could answer, she continued, "If there are any suitable young talents, I must introduce them to Xiao Ting. Xiao Ting is the daughter of her uncle and aunt, Xiao Qiao's cousin, and is currently a freshman in a Key 211 college in Beijing." After Xiao Qiao heard this, a look of embarrassment appeared on his face. "Xiao Qiao, aren't you unwilling to help?" The smile on my aunt's face faded. It's not that Xiao Qiao is unwilling to help, nor is she the kind of girl who is very jealous and doesn't like other people's good things. But she didn't know any young talents at all. She is not Zhou Ziyu, who is very comfortable in the circle of high-class celebrities. Although she has been with Li Jie for 3 or 4 years, she has never been in contact with the upper-class circles and has always maintained the social circle of ordinary people. Li Jie didn't let Xiao Qiao get in touch with the upper-class circles because he was afraid that she would learn bad things. The values and ways of thinking of the upper class are completely different from those of ordinary people, especially the refined egoistic concepts of the socialite circle. Most ordinary people are simpler and kinder than rich people. Because morality is a stumbling block that prevents people from getting rich. "Then let me give it a try," Xiao Qiao said reluctantly. She was going to ask Li Jie to see if he had a suitable candidate. Seeing Xiao Qiao agreed, the smile on my aunt's face suddenly widened again. "Xiao Qiao, it's up to you." In her opinion, her daughter is much more beautiful and outstanding than Xiao Qiao. Their Xiao Ting is a top student in 211, while Xiao Qiao is just an average student. She just got lucky and met a top potential player like Li Jie. What Xiao Ting and Xiao Ting are missing is just one opportunity. If they can get in touch with the upper-class high-end circles, are they afraid that they won't find a good partner? After getting rid of his aunt, Xiao Qiao returned to his room, sat down on the bed and let out a sigh of relief. Looking at the room where she had lived for more than 10 years, a complex of emotions surged into her heart. This should be the last time she goes home before getting married. Next time she comes back, this will be her parents' home. Dong dong, a sudden knock on the door interrupted Xiao Qiao's thoughts. "Who?" "It's me." Father Qiao's voice came from outside the door. Xiao Qiao stood up and opened the door. "Dad, are you okay? I want to chat with you for a few words." Father Qiao felt a little uncomfortable looking at his increasingly beautiful daughter who had disappeared. The cabbage he has raised for so many years will soon belong to someone else. I had known for a long time that my daughter would get married one day, but I didn't expect this day to come so quickly. After the two sat down, Xiao Qiao asked, "Dad, what do you want to say to me? What did your little aunt say to you?" "It's nothing, she just wants me to help Xiao Ting find a partner." After hearing this, Father Chiao nodded and said, if Xiaoji really has a suitable candidate, you can help introduce him to him. If not, forget it. Don't interfere too much. He thinks more than Xiao Chiao. It's not easy to be a matchmaker for relatives. You won't get any credit if the agreement is successful. If it doesn't happen, or the two parties break up in the future, they will still be blamed, let alone Xiao Chiao and her aunt. That person himself is quite busy. Dad, I understand. Xiao Chiao smiled coquettishly. Seeing her like this, Father Chiao suddenly remembered that he accidentally caught her on the phone with Li Jie, and her coquettish voice was unbearably sweet. His daughter has never been so coquettish with him. This made him feel a little sad. Sure enough, when my daughter grows up, she will become someone else's. How are you getting along with Li Jie recently? It's good, still like that. Father Chiao paused and said hesitantly, Xiao Chiao, I want to ask you something. You must tell me the truth. Okay, Dad, just ask, Xiao Chiao said nonchalantly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 557. Xiao Jie is so good, so many girls should be attracted to him, right? Yes, but... Before Xiao Chiao finished speaking, Chiao's father suddenly stared at her and said, is there another woman around Xiao Jie? His words came unexpectedly. Xiao Chiao was shocked when he heard it, his face changed, he was confused and at a loss. Does her father know something? Dad, what are you talking about? Xiao Chiao said with a forced smile. Xiao Jie, is there no other woman around him? Father Chiao observed her expression. Of course not. Xiao Chiao calmed down and finally calmed down, realizing that her father was probably deceiving her. There are some women with ulterior motives approaching him, but he is quite honest, she said with a smile in a relaxed tone. Really? Then I'll be relieved. Father Chiao stared at her for a while, smiled, and looked away. Seeing that Chiao's father stopped asking questions, Xiao Chiao secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and then couldn't help but blame Li Jie. That guy kept her secret of all the sex he wanted, and she couldn't tell her parents, but she had to help him cover it up. It's so frustrating. When she gets back, she will definitely give that guy a good beating to vent her anger. Father Chiao looked a little complicated and sighed inwardly. Xiao Chiao looked so flustered just now, how could he not see that she was lying? It seems that bastard Li Jie really has another woman outside, and his daughter is helping him cover it up. His silly daughter. Although Father Chiao felt uncomfortable, he was not too surprised by this result. He had long suspected that Li Jie might have another woman. Father Chiao has been online frequently in the past 2 years, following news about Kudong Group and Li Jie, and has seen some explosive posts. Li Jie had scandals with a beautiful writer and a female star named Lu Yufei under the company. Looking at the photos, these two girls are both equally beautiful, much prettier than his daughter. With such beauties staring at them, it would be difficult for a man to resist the temptation. So even though Xiaojin's spy never found anything, Chiao's father still became more and more worried. He also told his wife about his worries, but she didn't take it seriously and trusted Li Jie very much. Now it seems that his worries were indeed correct. Xiao Jian, the traitor, must have been bribed by that boy Li Jie with money, and kept lying about the news and deceiving him. Let's see how he deals with this kid tonight. Thinking of this, Father Chiao couldn't help but sigh. Dad, why are you sighing? Xiao Chiao asked curiously after noticing. It's nothing. Father Chiao calmed down and smiled. Now that things have happened, even if we find out that Li Jie is dishonest, what will we do? The two are getting married soon. The daughter was willing to help the boy cover up, Obviously she still cared about him very much. Even if he wanted to stop it, he might not be able to, so he could only pretend not to know. "Dad, even if I get married, I'm still your daughter," Xiao Jiao took Father Jiao's arm and said coquettishly. She thought Father Jiao felt bad because she was getting married. After hearing this, Father Jiao smiled and touched her head. "Silly girl, whether you marry or not, your status in the hearts of me and your mother will not change." After a pause, he said solemnly, if one day that guy Li Jie treats you badly, then you can come back again and don't feel wronged. Do you know that? Your mother and I will always stay in this room, keep it for you." Xiao Jiao felt a little sad and nodded vigorously. "Dad, don't worry, Li Jie is very good to me." That's good, Father Jiao sighed and nodded. Although this kid Li Jie is a playboy, he is really kind to Xiao Jiao and he is also very responsible. Even if you find another partner, it is difficult to guarantee that the other party will not be bothered. Wouldn't it be even worse if you meet someone who is carefree and has no sense of responsibility? Otherwise, even if Xiao Jiao blames him for the rest of her life, he will force her to break up with Li Jie. By the way, do you know about Xiao Miao? Father Jiao then thought about Miao Wenqian. That girl seemed gentle, sensible, dignified, and generous, but he felt that she was not simple. And that Zhou. Xiao Jiao wanted to say that Miao Wenqian and Zhou Ziyu were both vixens, but when she was halfway through her words, she suddenly realized that she had almost spilled the beans and quickly changed her words. "She is here just for Li Jie." Although she quickly changed her story, Father Jiao still heard something weak. Could it be that beautiful writer named Zhou? Are you here for Ziyaji? If it weren't for Li Jie, how could she have fallen in love with Xiao Jin? Xiao Jiao expressed her unfavorable opinions about Miao Wenqian without any secret. Her character is like this, she has a clear distinction between love and hate. If she likes someone, she likes it very much, and if she hates someone, she hates it very much. Listening to Xiao Jiao's words, Father Jiao's heart became more worried. Sure enough, he had expected it again. The girlfriend his son was looking for came with an obvious intention. Xiao Jiao stayed at home for 5 or 6 days. This was the last time she returned to her hometown before her marriage. The next time she came back would be to her parents' home, so she would definitely stay a few more days. When I heard that Xiao Jiao, the wife of a wealthy family, was back, waves of relatives, friends, and neighbors came to see her. Even when she walked in the town, she would be surrounded by people. This made her a little tired. She originally wanted to stay a few more days, but she couldn't stay any longer. A week before the wedding, Xiao Jiao returned to Shanghai with his father, Jiao's mother, relatives, and friends attending the wedding, and a group of 20 or 30 people. After the plane arrived in Shanghai, as soon as the group walked out of the security check channel, they saw a row of bodyguards in black suits waiting. Seeing Xiao Jiao, they all respectfully said, "Miss Jiao." Xiao Jiao nodded to them indifferently, turned to Father Jiao and Mother Jiao with a smile. "Dad, Mom, let's go." Okay," Father Jiao and Mother Jiao nodded as if they had come to their senses. They were both a little shocked by the scene. The second aunt, second uncle, younger aunt, and others were even more shocked. They were worthy of being billionaires. This was such a grand occasion. When they left the airport and came to the parking lot, they were shocked again when they saw all the top luxury cars such as Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Land Rover, and Maybach. I am becoming more and more aware of what the top rich are. In fact, Li Jie created the scene on purpose, just to save face for Xiao Jiao. Only by making the other person aware of the class gap between them will he be in awe of you. I believe that no relative will dare to act like an elder in front of Xiao Jiao in the future. 10 minutes later, a long queue of luxury cars drove into the Sandalwood Villa area. When the cars stopped in front of the villa, the second aunt, second uncle, brother-in-law, and others got out of the car and looked at her curiously. The villa in front of you. European retro-style villa, luxurious and grand. In a place like Shanghai, where land is at a premium, a villa covers an area of 2 or 3 acres. You don't need to think about it to know that it is absolutely sky-high. Come on, let's go in, Xiao Qiao greeted and walked into the villa. As soon as they entered the villa and saw the extremely luxurious interior, which was decorated like a palace, the second aunt, second uncle, younger aunt, and others were all stunned, and were shocked to the point of being completely numb. Xiao Qiao's family and relatives all came, and 2 or 3 days later, Li's mother, Li Zhe's cheap brother and sister-in-law, as well as the fourth, third, and second aunts and other relatives also came to Shanghai. When there were 2 days left before the wedding, Li's father also came. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 558. Hainan, Thanksgiving City. In a small rental house in the coastal shanty town, the table fan squeaked and swung back and forth to blow the wind. An elderly man in his 60s, with medium build and dark skin, was lying on a double iron frame bed covered with a mat, sleeping. Snoring and sleeping soundly. This man is Li Zhe's father, Li Fengqi, from Gangchang, Baihe Province. In fact, Lingang was once one of the 4 provincial municipalities in Baihe Province, and it belonged to the Luanzhou Prefecture together with Luanzhou City. It was not until 1983 that the Luanzhou Prefecture was revoked and the 2 cities were separated. Li Fengqi was a native of Jiayang, Lingang City, and belonged to the Li family branch in Longzi. It can be traced back to Laozi Li Er, and further back to Jiao Tao, the grandson of Zhuangsu. Zhuangsu is the grandson of Huangdi, one of the 5 emperors, which means that Li Fengqi can be regarded as a descendant of Huangdi. Of course, nowadays, except for those who were given surnames by their ancestors or changed their surnames and sneaked in, the Chinese are basically descendants of the Yellow Emperor tribe. Talking about Jiao Tao, talking about Li Er is too old. The first lineage of the Li family in Longzi is Li Guang. That is, the heir general who always gets lost in battles. Therefore, Li Zhe's lack of sense of direction and inability to distinguish between north and south are also due to inheritance from his ancestors. The previous generations of the Li family had been wealthy and were big landowners in the village. In Li Fengqi's father's generation, although the family was in decline, Li's father was also the production team leader of the village. Even in the most difficult times, the family was not hungry. Who has been there? Li Fengqi is still the youngest in the family, and her personality is a bit spoiled, unable to endure hardships, and not very settled. After graduating from junior high school, he attended a teacher training class for half a year and taught in a primary school in the town after graduation. At that time, teachers were not very respected and their wages were very low, only a dozen yuan a month. Li Fengqi worked for more than a year and could no longer work, so he ran to the northeast to join his eldest sister and brother-in-law. Before the opening up, the northeast was a heavy industry base with abundant coal, iron, petroleum, and forest resources, and its economy was better than that in Guan'ei. Many people in Guan went to the northeast to make a living. After family planning was implemented, some families who had illegal or extra births would run to the northeast in order to avoid punishment. The economic decline of northeast China was caused by the southward shift of the country's economic center of gravity starting in the 1980s, coupled with the depletion of resources. The earliest ones were forest farms that declined. In the mid to late 1980s, after the state implemented forest harvesting quota management, many people in the forest farms lost their livelihoods and had to leave their homes. Then coal and iron ore resources were depleted, and finally even oil resources were depleted. It can be said that the Northeast was the most severely affected by the layoff wave in the 1990s. This eldest son, who tried his best to contribute all the resources in the early days of the founding of the People's Republic of China, was forgotten after the country's economic development. Li Fengqi has done everything in the Northeast. He has cut down trees in forest farms, farmed in rural areas, and practiced medicine and sold medicine. In the late Qing dynasty, the ancestors of the Li family saved a Taoist priest and obtained several prescriptions that could treat some difficult and complicated diseases. At that time, control was not strict, and there was no such thing as illegal medical practice. Many doctors did not have medical qualification certificates. Although Li Fengqi has done everything, he cannot bear hardships, is restless, and cannot persevere no matter what he does. Therefore, after wandering around for more than 10 years, the man in his 30s and 40s still achieves nothing and has nothing, let alone marry a wife and have children. When he was 37 or 18 years old, there was really no way out, so he went down the mine and became a miner. State-owned coal mines do not always recruit workers. They have not hired workers for the past 5 or 6 years. Li Fengqi has finally caught up, otherwise he would have no choice but to return to his hometown in Jiang to farm. In that era, it was better to be a worker than a farmer. If farmers wanted to become urbanites, they also needed to buy a household registration. Besides, although the wages in state-owned coal mines are lower, they are much safer than private coal mines. After working in the mine for less than a year, Li Fengqi was introduced to Li's mother, who had been divorced for 3 or 4 years and was raising her children alone. The two got married after getting along for a few months. After more than a year of marriage, Li's mother became pregnant with Li Jie. Next, Li Fengqi worked in the mines for several years, while Li's mother grew vegetables and sold them to support the family. In the 1990s, the wave of layoffs broke out, and the economy in the Northeast became increasingly bad. Unemployed workers were everywhere. Many school teachers were unable to pay their salaries and were often in arrears with wages. The teachers could not make ends meet and had to go on strike. The coal mine where Li Fengqi worked also often delayed wages. Seeing that the situation was not good, his restless heart became active again. Hearing that Li's mother had a relative working in the Luanzhou City Health Bureau, he had the idea of taking a leave of absence without pay and returning to Luanzhou to open a clinic. To this end, Li's mother also went to the advanced training class run by Jiaxi Medical College for a period of time. Obtained the Rural Physician Qualification Certificate. In 1995, Li's mother returned to her hometown of Luanzhou with 9-year-old Li Jie, hoping to open a private clinic. Unexpectedly, Baihe province happened to be implementing a crackdown on individual clinics. Individual clinics without medical licenses were all inspected and temporarily suspended. Got a medical license. The medical license was suspended and the clinic could not be opened. Li's mother chose to stay in Luanzhou temporarily to wait for news and see when the medical license would be issued. Li Jie also stayed in Luanzhou to go to school. But after waiting for nearly a year with no news, Li's mother prepared to take Li Jie back to the northeast. At this moment, Li Fengqi applied for a leave of absence without pay and suddenly ran back. My job has been suspended, so I can't go back. Li's mother and Li Fengqi worked in a rural hospital for a while, but they didn't make much money. After quitting working in a rural hospital, Li Fengqi went to Harbin and contracted a department with a friend for 2 years in a private hospital. However, he still didn't make much money, so he returned to the mountain city and continued working. Li's mother, along with Li Jie and Li's Hepeng, stayed in her hometown. After waiting for 4 or 5 years, she finally obtained a rural medical license and opened a small private clinic in the village. Not long after Li Fengqi returned to the mountain city, he met a woman named Qi Lina through medical treatment. She worked in the finance department of the mine, and her husband was a deputy director of the mine. Taking advantage of the relationship with the deputy mine manager, he was transferred from underground to above ground and found a job as a water housekeeper. Although the salary is small, the work is extremely easy and there is no danger. Within 2 years, the deputy mine manager died without being cured, but Li Fengqi, the healer, hooked up with his wife. In the second year after Li Jie was admitted to college, Li Fengqi retired and took Chi Lina back to his hometown of Jiaying. His nephew, who worked in engineering, found him a job looking after a liquefied gas station. Li Fengqi looked at the liquefied gas station, while Chi Lina was responsible for cooking for several workers working at the gas station. Before Chi Lina met the deputy mine manager, she worked in the canteen of the mine. The two worked at the gas station for more than a year. A relative of Chi Lina contacted her and said that there were many people from the northeast in Hainan, so it was easier to make money. Li Fengqi followed Chi Lina to Thanksgiving City in Hainan. Li Fengqi finally woke up after sleeping until after 10 o'clock, yawned and sat up from the bed. After sitting on the bed for a while, he got up and put on his clothes, went to the faucet in the yard and washed his face. He planned to go to a small restaurant outside to eat something, and then wait until it cooled down at 2 or 3 in the afternoon before going to the beach to set up a stall. He will come to Thanksgiving market with Chi Lina. He heard that it is very profitable to do shasha and cupping at a stall here. You can earn at least 200 to 300 a day. After arriving here, Li Fengqi observed for a few days and found that it was indeed very profitable to set up a stall here to do scraping and cupping. On a good day, he could even earn 500 to 600. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 559. But after he purchased a folding bed and guasha and cupping tools, and imitated others and started running a stall, there was no business at all. After working for more than a month, not only did he not make much money, but he also met a scoundrel who blackmailed him out of a sum of money. On the contrary, Chi Lina found a job as a back cook in a seaside restaurant through her relatives. She did a good job. At first, she was a small worker helping the cook, earning 1,500 yuan a month. After working for 2 months, she became a sous chef, and her salary was also low. Doubled. After being blackmailed, Li Fengqi had no motivation to go out. He spent 3 days fishing and 2 days drying nets, either sleeping in a rental house or hanging out at the beach, talking nonsense with some idle people. After living like this for 5 or 6 months, he paid more than 10,000 yuan for rent, water, electricity and daily living expenses for the two of them, plus the air tickets when they came here, as well as the money that was stolen. Pensions are stretched thin. Seeing that Li Fengqi had no ability to make money, Chi Lina's attitude towards him became worse and worse. She often said sarcastic words without shame, and even hooked up with the chef of the restaurant where she worked. The longer Li Fengqi stayed here, the more frustrated he became. He wanted to leave and go back to Jiaying, but he still couldn't bear to leave. After locking the door of the rental house with the lock, Li Fengqi left the courtyard and went to a nearby small noodle shop and ordered a bowl of pickled noodles. Soon, the old helper, who was in her 50s and slightly fat, put the prepared pickled noodles on the table. "Master Li, you are eating noodles every day, are you too frugal?" Li Fengqi often comes to this shop to eat noodles these days, and has become familiar with the proprietress. Li Fengqi stirred the noodles and said with a smile, "It's okay if you don't save a little. If the business is not good, you can't make money, and there is a son waiting for the money. Master Li, your son should be married, right? Getting married? It's early. He just graduated from college this year." Just graduated from college, the boss lady was a little surprised. "Is this your youngest son?" "No, this is my only son." Thinking of Li Jie, Li Fengqi felt disappointed. He originally thought that by paying for his son's college education, he would be able to take advantage of his son's plans and enjoy happiness in the future. But he didn't expect that his son could not even find a good job after spending so much money studying in college for 4 years. It would be better not to go to college. Now he suddenly wants to buy a house and get married, and he is asked to add money. There are young people in Jiaying who go to work abroad and can earn 200,000 to 300,000 a year. Why are other people's children so talented, but his son is so hopeless? Li Fengqi completely forgot that he only gave Li Jie 1 year's tuition and living expenses. After that, Li Jie didn't take the initiative to ask for money from him, and he never asked if he needed money. I was even afraid that he would ask for money, so I didn't even take the initiative to make a phone call. "Master Li, your son just graduated, so you are 60 this year," said the landlady. "I am exactly 60 this year." Li Fengqi put down the chopsticks for eating noodles and compared them with his hands. "Then you got married quite late." The landlady paused and said, "But now that your child has graduated, the pressure on you will be a lot less." Li Fengqi shook his head. "In the future, he will buy a house and get married, so he will need money for many things. Otherwise, why would I still be dancing around at such an old age? It would all be for the sake of my children." In his heart, his mistress is much more important than his son, but that doesn't stop him from singing a high-key tone. "It's true that young people who have just started working have no money, so we have to rely on old people like us to buy a house and get married," the proprietress agreed. "Nowadays, young people are not very capable. When I was young, I traveled to the Northeast alone." Li Fengqi then boasted about his experience of traveling to the Northeast. More than 10 years of wandering and abject poverty have made him exaggerate into something of a legend. The old gangster could also tell that he was bragging, so she dealt with it casually. While the two were talking, a black Mercedes-Benz RV passed by the front of the small restaurant and drove into the distance. The proprietress couldn't help but take a second look. That car was really majestic. However, after a while, the black Mercedes-Benz turned around and drove back, stopping in front of the small restaurant. The car door was pushed open, and 3 young men and women, 2 men and 1 woman, got out of the car. Among them, a man and a woman were wearing black suits, with strong postures, tall and capable, and they looked like bodyguards. The other girl is a female white-collar worker, dressed in professional attire, tall, with a great temperament, and very beautiful, no worse than a female star. Seeing the 3 of them walking in, the landlady immediately greeted them with a smile. "What do you guys want to eat?" The pretty girl smiled at her and said, "Auntie, we're not eating, we're here to find someone." "Looking for someone? Who are you looking for?" The pretty girl didn't answer. Her eyes fell on Li Fengqi, who was looking at him curiously while eating noodles, and walked over. "Uncle, are you Li Fengqi?" Li Fengqi was stunned, and it took him 2 or 3 seconds to react. "Yes, I am Li Fengqi. Are you looking for me?" The beautiful girl immediately smiled and said with great enthusiasm, "Hello, uncle, I am Zhang Wenjun, and I am here to pick you up on behalf of Mr. Li. Mr. Li." Li Fengqi was even more confused. He told the boss's wife that he knew this official and that big boss back then, but that was just a boast. He had been working at the bottom all his life, and how could he know the big boss? "Who is Mr. Li?" "Uncle, our Mr. Li is your son Li Jie," Zhang Wenjun said with a smile. She followed Li Jie's instructions and made a special trip to Ganfen City to look for Li's father. "My son? Li Jie?" Li Fengqi stood up suddenly in surprise, with a look of disbelief on his face. The table made a clang sound when he touched it. Zhang Wenjun was startled. "Uncle, don't get too excited." She was worried that at such an old age, he would not be able to explain to Li Jie if he got emotional and acted badly. Zhou Chao and Xu Mei subconsciously took 2 steps forward. The boss lady on the side was also stunned. Didn't Lao Litu say that his son had just graduated from college and couldn't even find a job? Why did he suddenly become the big boss again? Looking at this ostentation, he has a net worth of hundreds of millions. "My son is your Mr. Li." Li Fengqi stared at Zhang Wenjun, worried and full of expectation. "Didn't he just graduate? How come he became your boss?" Zhang Wenjun smiled and said, "This is a long story. Uncle, you'd better come with us first. When you see Mr. Li, let him explain to you." "Where is Li Jie now?" Mr. Li is in Shanghai. Okay, I'll go with you. Li Fengqi was very excited. He was willing to give up money to send his son to college, just because he wanted his son to make a lot of money after graduation, and he could benefit from it. As for why Li Jie suddenly became the big boss just after graduation? Whether there was any problem, he didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about whether Zhang Wenjun and the others were liars, they only thought about the benefits. Li Fengqi followed Zhang Wenjun and the others out of the small restaurant, and the proprietress quickly followed. When he arrived at the Mercedes-Benz RV, Zhang Wenjun reached out and opened the door for him. "Uncle, please get in the car." "Okay." Li Fengqi looked at the car cautiously and curiously, and then stepped into the car. He has never been in such a nice car in his life. Just when Zhang Wenjun was about to get in the car, the proprietress suddenly said, "Sister Lu, your boss Li is not the big boss of Kudong Group, is he?" Zhang Wenjun looked back at her and smiled, but did not answer. After the car drove away, the landlady finally let out a long breath as if she had regained her composure. This was really new today. This Li Jie can't be the big boss of Kudong Group. He probably just has the same name. How could a billionaire have such an incompetent father? With this in mind, she turned around and walked towards the store. After taking just 2 steps, she suddenly remembered something and couldn't help but scream. "Oops, I forgot to collect the money from old man Li." In the car, Li Fengqi kept looking at the luxurious interior of the RV without knowing much. "Uncle, how about we accompany you back to your residence first and pack your things," Zhang Wenjun said with a smile. Li Fengqi turned around, shook his head and said, "There are a few worthless clothes where I live. There is nothing to take away." There were Qi Lina's belongings in the rental house, and he didn't want Zhang Wenjun and the others to see them. "Did you bring your ID card?" "I'm taking it with me." "Okay, then we will go directly to Sanya. Tell me what you are missing or need, and I will buy it for you." "Girl, are you my son's employee?" Li Fengqi looked at Zhang Wenjun and said. "This girl is so pretty." Zhang Wenjun nodded, "I am Mr. Li's personal secretary." "Uncle, just call me Ziajun." "Secretary," Li Fengqi suddenly thought too much. In the 1990s, secretary was synonymous with mistress. Speaking of personal secretaries, I heard that they have a very close relationship with their boss. However, he was able to get it right. "Who are these two?" Li Fengqi said, looking at Zhou Chao and Xu Mei sitting in the front row. "They are all Mr. Li's bodyguards." Zhang Wenjun maintained a smile. "He is also a secretary and a bodyguard. It seems that his son has really become a big boss. I wonder how much money he has now?" Li Fengqi was thinking in his heart. "This car also belongs to my son." "Yes, this is the car used by Mr. Li for traveling in Hainan." "The car is in Hainan, so he has other cars? How much does this car cost? Is it expensive?" "I don't know exactly, maybe 3 to 4 million. An ordinary Mercedes-Benz Sprinter sedan costs 1 to 2 million, but Li Jie's privately customized version is much more expensive." "So expensive?" Li Fengqi shouted in shock. "A car costs 3 to 4 million, so how much money should his son have?" "Li Jie is your boss, so what company does he open and how big is it?" Zhang Wenjun smiled and said, "Uncle, let's wait until we meet Mr. Li and let him tell you in person." After saying that, she got up and walked to the car refrigerator, reached out and opened the refrigerator door. "Uncle, what do you want to drink?" "There are drinks, beer, red wine, and mineral water." "I drink some red wine." Li Fengqi hesitated and said. "This red wine must be genuine, he has never tasted high-end red wine." "Okay." Zhang Wenjun took a bottle of red wine and a goblet. Then she opened the red wine with a corkscrew and poured a little red wine into the glass. Li Fengqi picked up the wine glass and was about to drink it. Zhang Wenjun stopped him with a smile and said, "Uncle, you need to wake up to drink this wine." "Really? I've never drank red wine, and I don't understand this. He suddenly remembered something and said in a loud voice, "Oh, I forgot one thing." "Uncle, what's the matter?" "I have a friend here, and I want to say goodbye to her before I leave." Li Fengqi wanted to go to the restaurant where Chi Lina worked, to show her these multi-million-dollar luxury cars, and to tell her that her son was a big boss. Zhang Wenjun asked Zhou Chao who was driving, and then said, "Uncle, we have already left the Binhai scenic area. Otherwise, when we get to Sanya, can you say goodbye to your friends via video?" "Okay then." Li Fengqi picked up the wine glass and drank the red wine in one gulp. This wine is not sweet and is a bit sour, but after tasting it, it feels pretty good. How can high-end red wine not taste good? Zhang Wenjun looked at Li Fengqi who was drinking red wine and shook his head secretly in his heart. She was responsible for delivering gifts to Li's mother during the holidays. After several contacts, she found that Li's mother was an ordinary old man with limited knowledge, but she had a very good personality, kind-hearted and reasonable. But when she met Father Li this time, she was even more disappointed. Not only did he have no knowledge, but his character was also exaggerated and unreliable. How could such a family cultivate such an outstanding person as Li Jie? If Li Jie hadn't looked a bit like his father and mother, Zhang Wenjun would have even suspected that he was held in the wrong arms at birth. Is genius really innate? Li Fengqi drank most of a bottle of red wine one glass after another. After a while, he got drunk, his face turned red to his neck, and he was obviously a little drunk. This wine has quite a lot of staying power. He had never drank high-end red wine, so he didn't know that this stuff had more stamina than white wine. "Uncle, why don't you take a nap? It will take us almost 3 hours to get to Sanya." Zhang Wenjun sent Father Li to the bed in the back of the RV to rest. Lying on the comfortable bed, Li Fengqi fell asleep quickly and started snoring. When he woke up again, he was woken up by Zhang Wenjun. "Here we are." Li Fengqi got off the bed, looked outside, and found that the sun had set in the west. "This is the seaside," he said unexpectedly. Zhang Wenjun said, "Mr. Li has a sea view holiday villa here in Sanya. We will stay in the villa for one night and fly back to Shanghai tomorrow morning." In the afternoon, they arrived in the city of Sy. She helped Li Fengqi buy some clothes and supplies, and then drove to the beach villa. "Villa?" Li Fengqi couldn't help shouting in surprise. "Li Jie has a villa here." Zhang Wenjun glanced at him, wondering why Li Jie, a father, was so restless. The personalities of father and son are completely different. As soon as he got off the RV, Li Fengqi saw a group of villas with blue sky, clear water, green grass, and lush trees, and extremely beautiful modern villas dotted among them. He was stunned immediately, the scenery was so beautiful. He had also seen sea view villas in Thanksgiving City, but they were nothing compared to this one. "Uncle, let's go." Li Fengqi and Zhang Wenjun led him to a fashionable and beautiful 3-story villa. "This is the villa." Li Fengqi followed Zhang Wenjun to the villa and looked around. The more he looked, the more shocked he became. This villa was too luxurious. He had never seen such a beautiful villa in his life. "If I could stay in this villa for a day, my life would be considered worthwhile. This villa is so nice. Does it really belong to Li Jie?" He couldn't believe it again. "Yes." Zhang Wenjun smiled and said. "Then how much does this villa cost?" "I don't know very well, probably 10 to 20 million. 10 or 20 million. Shocked, surprised, and excited, Li Fengqi was so excited that he couldn't help himself. His blood pressure soared instantly. His body swayed and he almost fell. Zhang Wenjun was so frightened that he quickly supported him. "Uncle, are you okay?" "I'm fine." Li Fengqi couldn't restrain the joy on his face. A luxury car worth 4 to 5 million yuan and a villa worth tens of millions are just for vacation. So how much money should his son have? He has gained a lot of glory, and he will enjoy the blessings from now on. Zhang Wenjun took Li's father up to the third floor, went to Li Zhe's master bedroom, helped him get settled and left. After Zhang Wenjun, Zhou Chao and Xu Mei left, Li Fengqi walked around the spacious and luxurious room excitedly, looking here and there for a long time before he managed to calm down. Then he took out his cell phone and made a call. Li Fengqi was going to call Qi Lina over and let her take a look at the villa. He felt uncomfortable if she didn't show it off to someone. "Sorry, the phone number you dialed is unavailable." He put down his phone in shock. How could it be an empty number? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 560. Ziyajun, Li Fengqi ran down the stairs with a whoosh. "Uncle, what's the matter with you?" Zhou Chao came out of the room immediately after hearing the noise. Li Fengqi glanced at him and said, "Where is Ziyajun?" Within a short time, he lost the restraint and caution at the beginning and started to act like a big boss father. "Secretary Zhang has gone back to her room and will probably come out soon." "Uncle, please wait a moment," Zhou Chao said. Zhang Wenjun and the three of them all lived on the first floor. Zhang Wenjun and Xu Mei shared a room, and Zhou Chao had a room by himself. Soon, Zhang Wenjun also came out of the room, and Xu Mei followed her. She returned to the room and prepared to rest for a while, but as soon as she lay down on the bed, she was woken up by Li Fengqi. "Uncle, what do you want? My phone seems to be broken. Why can't I get through to anyone I call?" Li Fengqi said, holding up his old-fashioned function phone. "Ziyajun, please give me your mobile phone." He called Qi Lina several times, but all the messages were empty words. He called his eldest sister again, and this time the message was that the other party was on the phone. He tried to call other people, but the result was that the other party was still on the phone. Zhang Wenjun took the old-fashioned function phone from Li Fengqi and tried to dial his own number, but found that he couldn't get through. She returned the phone to Li Fengqi. "Uncle, wait a moment, I'll get the phone." After saying that, she was going back to her room to get her cell phone. Zhou Chao took out his mobile phone and said, "Uncle, how about you use my mobile phone to make a call?" As he spoke, he gave Zhang Wenjun a covert wink. Zhang Wenjun was stunned for a moment and suddenly understood something. Li Fengqi took Zhou Chao's cell phone and fiddled with it a few times, but didn't know how to use it. He has never used a smartphone. "Uncle, let me dial the number for you." Zhang Wenjun took the phone. Li Fengqi asked Zhang Wenjun to dial Qi Lina's number first, and found that the number was still empty. Then he called his eldest sister's number, and she was still on the phone. "Why not?" Zhou Chao on the side said, "Uncle, maybe because this is the seaside, the signal is not very good. You can try again when you get to the city tomorrow. If it still doesn't work, we will accompany you to the business hall to have a look." "Okay," Li Fengqi thought for a while and felt that this could only be the reason. He then said to Zhang Wenjun, "Ziyajun, please refund the ticket first. I will stay here for a few days before going to Shanghai." Zhang Wenjun was stunned for a moment and said, "Uncle, Mr. Li told me to take you back as soon as I receive you." "It's okay, just listen to me. If you, Mr. Li, ask, just tell me what I said." Li Fengqi waved his hand nonchalantly. He planned to enjoy it here for a few days, and then let Zhang Wenjun and the others take Qi Lina over. Zhang Wenjun looked embarrassed. "Uncle, this is what Mr. Li ordered, please don't embarrass me." Li Fengqi's face suddenly darkened. "Why, it's hard for me to speak. You, Mr. Li, have to listen to me as a father." Zhang Wenjun said nothing, but his expression said everything. Li Fengqi nodded displeased. "Okay, I'll call your Mr. Li now to see what he says and whether my words work well." After he finished speaking, he took out his cell phone and dialed. "Sorry, the number you dialed is currently on a call." Seeing him put down his mobile phone, Zhang Wenjun said, "Uncle, you'd better go to bed early. We have a flight tomorrow morning." "Then I won't leave, you should send me back again." Li Fengqi felt very humiliated and said angrily. Zhang Wenjun, Xu Mei and Zhou Chao looked at each other, then nodded to him and said, "Okay. Uncle, if you insist, we can take you back." Li Fengqi was stunned when he heard this, but he didn't expect that Zhang Wenjun actually agreed. Didn't Li Jie ask them to pick him up? After being silent for a few seconds, he smiled again and said, "Forget it, you can't make the decision. I won't make things difficult for you. I'll tell him when I see you, Mr. Li." After saying that, he turned around and went upstairs. Zhang Wenjun looked at Li Fengqi's leaving figure, let out a breath, and shook his head in his heart. Before coming, Li Jie had told them to bring him back immediately after finding his father. If his father did anything wrong, they didn't have to worry about it or spoil him. She was still wondering, what kind of tricks could an old man do? But she had seen it just now. Zhang Wenjun thought of a word, his face was fierce and his heart was filled with tears. How could Li Jie have such a father? That night, Li Fengqi lay on the luxurious bed, feeling excited and expectant. They were wondering what Li Jie was doing and how he became a big boss right after graduation. With a luxury car worth 3 to 4 million and a vacation villa worth tens of millions, his son must have a net worth of hundreds of millions, right? His son has become a billionaire. As a father, he can eat whatever he wants and enjoy it however he wants. Li Fengqi suddenly didn't care much about Qi Lina. His son is already a big boss. With money, he is still afraid that he will not find a younger and more beautiful woman than Qi Lina. Qi Lina also ridiculed him and looked down on him. Now she is not worthy of him. When he saw Li Jie, he first asked him to ask for 1.8 million, and asked him to talk about his beautiful secretary's lack of respect for him as an elder. Thinking of Zhang Wenjun's attitude, Li Fengqi felt a little uneasy. How dare she, a secretary, make the decision privately? Could it be that Li Jie had a problem with him? His son has obviously been rich for a long time, but why has he kept it hidden from him? He also said that he was short of money to buy a house and asked him to add 50,000 yuan. Is it because of Qi Lina? Li Fengqi suddenly felt a little regretful. If he had known that Li Jie was so promising and became a big boss, he would not be willing to part with the 50,000 yuan. In the past 4 years, Li Jie has not asked him for money. Between his pension, the salary he earned at the liquefied gas station, and the bits and pieces he earned from treating people, he has almost saved up to 100,000 yuan. Last year, Qi Lina's son bought a house and got married, so he added 60,000 yuan, and now he still has 50,000 yuan in hand. However, what if Li Jie has some opinions about him? Can he still be ignored? He is his father. Soon, Li Fengqi stopped taking it seriously. Early the next morning, Li Fengqi was woken up by Zhou Chao before he woke up, and he got into the Mercedes-Benz RV and headed to the airport. Seeing that the villa was getting further and further away, Li Fengqi planned to ask Li Jie for 1.8 million, so that he could come to this villa to retire and hire a young and good-looking nanny to take care of him. When they arrived in the city, Li Fengqi tried to make a call again, but it still didn't work. After asking at the business office, he learned that his phone card was broken, so Zhang Wenjun applied for a new phone card for him and bought him a new mobile phone. On the plane, Li Fengqi was sitting in the first-class seat, watching the tall and beautiful stewardess walking by, and couldn't help but drift up. When he came to Hainan, he flew in economy class once, and it was completely incomparable to this first class. Not only are the seats in the first-class cabin spacious and comfortable, the flight attendants are also much prettier, and the service is particularly attentive. He immediately gave up the idea of retiring in the villa. Once he got rich, he would go wherever he wanted. Also, he wanted to go back to his hometown to show off and let everyone know how promising he had trained his son. Ziyajun, isn't this first-class cabin particularly expensive? Li Fengqi turned to Zhang Wenjun and said. Isn't it too generous of his son to ask employees to travel first class? You can't waste money like this. Zhang Wenjun smiled politely and said, it's not particularly expensive. It's about 1.7–2.3 times that of economy class. It's just that it can't be discounted like economy class. She remembered what Li Fengqi said when boarding the plane, you guys should sit here too. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 561. More than 3 hours later, the plane arrived in Shanghai. After the group came out of the airport, they saw an extended black Audi sedan waiting for them. A male driver about 30 years old stood beside the car. When he saw Zhang Wenjun, he immediately said respectfully, Secretary Zhang. Then he took 2 steps back, reached out, and opened the rear door. Zhang Wenjun nodded to the driver, turned to Li Fengqi and said, Uncle, get in the car. Li Fengqi looked at the Audi car, walked to the car and was about to get in, but suddenly he stopped again. Where is your Mr. Li? Why didn't Li Zhe come to pick him up? Even if he becomes the big boss, he is still his father. Zhang Wenjun smiled formulaically, Mr. Li, he is busy. You can see him when you get to the company. Busy. Li Fengqi felt a little unhappy and stepped into the car. Zhang Wenjun, Xu Mei, and Zhou Chao also got into the car, and then the black Audi car drove away slowly. Li Fengqi looked at the passing scenery outside the car window, with tall buildings and heavy traffic. He felt shocked. He had never been to such a big city. The Shanghai Stock Exchange is so prosperous. He suddenly felt that it would be good to stay here. Soon, the car came to an office area lined with office buildings, drove into a 20-story high-rise building, and parked underground. After getting off the car, Zhang Wenjun took Li Fengqi into the elevator. As the elevator went up, well-dressed male and female employees would come in and out from time to time. After seeing Zhang Wenjun, they would respectfully and enthusiastically call Secretary Zhang. Li Fengqi couldn't help but glance at Zhang Wenjun. It was hard for him to imagine how big a boss his son was for such a young secretary. Ziyajun, does this building belong to your company? No, our group just rented a few floors of this office building. Group. Li Fengqi was stunned when he heard this. His son has more than one company. At this time, Zhang Wenjun continued, however, when the group headquarters building is completed next year, it will be moved there. Group, headquarters building? Li Fengqi was completely confused. With a ding, the elevator stopped again. Zhang Wenjun glanced at Li Fengqi, who was in a daze, and said, Uncle, we are here. After getting out of the elevator, she took Li Fengqi to an office, opened the door and walked in. In an office area of hundreds of square meters, a dozen well-dressed young girls are working. Seeing Zhang Wenjun walking in, most of the girls stood up and said enthusiastically, Wenjun, you are back. Their eyes immediately fell on Li Fengqi, who was following Zhang Wenjun. Zhang Wenjun smiled and nodded to them. Mr. Li, is he here? Mr. Li went to the conference room for a meeting, said a pretty, young girl. Zhang Wenjun turned to Li Fengqi and said, Uncle, Mr. Li is in a meeting. Please wait a moment. Okay. Li Fengqi looked around cautiously and curiously. Such an occasion made him feel a little timid. Zhang Wenjun found an empty seat for Li Fengqi to sit down, poured him another cup of coffee, and then she left. The girls in the office, while working, glanced curiously at Li Fengqi from time to time, guessing his identity. A girl stood up and walked to Li Fengqi's table and asked tentatively, Uncle, are you Wenjun's elder? No, I am the father of our Mr. Li. Li Fengqi said a little showily. After staying for a while, he became less timid. No matter how glamorous these girls are, they are not working for his son. The girl was stunned when she heard this. Not only the girls in her office were also stunned. "You are our Mr. Li's father." The girl looked at Li Fengqi and said in surprise. Before coming to Shanghai, Zhang Wenjun bought several sets of high-end clothes for Li Fengqi. But clothes can be changed, but a person's temperament is difficult to change. Li Fengqi looks like this, and it seems that he is not a person of any status. "Why don't you believe it?" Li Fengqi smiled, took out the cigarette and was about to smoke it, but thought of something and put the cigarette back again. The girl forced a smile and said, "Uncle, I didn't say I didn't believe it." She said this, but the look on her face gave her away. Time passed little by little, and soon more than 2 hours passed. Li Zhen never showed up, and even Zhang Wenjun never came back. Li Fengqi stood up and sat down again and again several times. She really couldn't wait any longer. Li Zhe is too arrogant. It's okay not to pick him up, but now he is left here to hang out. He is his father. At this time, the girls in the office stood up one after another, laughing and walking out. Li Fengqi quickly stopped a girl. "Are you off work?" The girl smiled and said, "No, it's only 3:30, in the afternoon. I get off work at 5:30. We are going to have afternoon tea. From 3:30 to 3:45 in the afternoon, it is tea time. Employees can drink tea, eat snacks, and relax for a while. Not only the president's office, but also all departments of Kudong Group have this benefit." "Afternoon tea?" Li Fengqi was stunned when he heard this. "No wonder you have to study, just sit in the office. Not to mention how easy it is to work, you can also have tea and rest. Can you help me find Mr. Li and tell him that Li Fengqi is waiting for him?" The girl looked embarrassed after hearing this. "Uncle, it's not that I won't help you, but Mr. Li is in a meeting, and I don't dare to disturb him." Everyone left. Li Fengqi sighed and sat down again. Meeting. Why can a meeting last so long? After a while, the girl from before came back with a cup of tea and a plate of snacks in her hands. "Uncle, you should also have a cup of tea and some snacks." "Thank you." Li Fengqi felt a little touched. "Little girl, what's your name? When I see your Mr. Li, tell him to promote you." The girl couldn't help laughing after hearing this. "Uncle, thank you. But, no need." After finishing afternoon tea, more than half an hour later, the office door was suddenly pushed open, and a young man with a tall figure and good temperament, wearing a pair of black-rimmed glasses, walked in from the outside. Zhang Wenjun and another girl followed him. Seeing the young man come in, all the girls in the office immediately stood up and said, "Mr. Li." The moment Li Fengqi saw the young man, he was stunned. Is this really his son? If it weren't for Zhang Wenjun's skill with Li Zhe, he wouldn't even dare to recognize him. After not seeing Li Zhe for 4 years, not only his appearance has changed a lot, he seems to be a different person, but his temperament has also changed even more. His eyes are firm and confident, and his every move has an aura, just like those big shots on TV. Li Zhe waved his hand and asked the secretaries Huo Menjian, Lu Yi, and Zheng Shan to sit down. Then he turned to look at Li Fengqi, but did not speak. "Xiao Zhe," Li Fengqi tentatively called out softly. Li Zhe stared at him for a few more seconds, and nodded this time. "Dad, let's go to the inner room to chat." Seeing Li Zhe and Li Fengqi walking into the inner office together, Huo Menjian, Lu Yi, and Zheng Shan looked at each other in disbelief. That old man is really Li Zhe's father. If he had known this, they would have been more enthusiastic towards him. Lu Yi and Zheng Shan subconsciously looked at Huo Menjian. It was the tea and snacks she had given to Father Li just now. Arriving at the inner office, Li Zhe motioned to Li Fengqi to sit down on the sofa, and he also sat down beside him. Li Fengqi glanced at Li Zhe cautiously and said with a flattering smile, "Xiao Zhe, You are really promising. You have such a big group. What have you been doing these past few years? Seeing him like this, Li Jie sighed deeply in his heart. What he dislikes the most is the kind of snobbish people who will envy and fawn over others as long as they are powerful. Even if they don't give him a penny, ridicule, or look down on them, he will still look down on them. But he had such a father. That's all. His father is extremely selfish and has no sense of responsibility. He only has himself in his heart, and the life and death of others have nothing to do with him. Did you go to Hainan with Chi Lina?